So we're really glad you're here. I'm Amanda with the Black Expat, and this is our first professional chat. I'm really excited because I think we're going to have a really good discussion tonight, and we're definitely taping this, so this will be a resource for those who already messaged me and said they couldn't make it, but they wanted to watch and see and get this information. So with that being said, I think the easiest thing for us to do is go ahead and just have you guys introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are, what you're doing, city and country, because some of us, our geography is not our strong suit. And then we'll kind of go from there, all right? Great.
Okay, good morning and good evening, everybody. My name is Keisha Hu, and I am a school counselor in Guangzhou, China. Guangzhou is about an hour and 15 minutes away from Hong Kong. So I'm in the southern part of China. Kind of the weather's kind of like similar to Florida. I am originally from New York by way of Jamaica. And I'm happy to be here.
Great. Thanks. Ryan, do you want to go?
Oh, I was going to say ladies first. That's right.
Ryan.
Oh, she's
like, go on, Ryan.
Okay, thank you. Ryan Haynes. I work in Bangkok, Thailand. I'm originally from Richmond, Virginia. Fellow Caribbean, I guess native. I'm half Trini. My mom's from Trinidad. So cross-cultural kid there. Been a counselor for 16 years, have lived internationally for the past 14 years, and I work at International School Bangkok as a high school counselor.
Cool. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Oh, good morning and good evening. Also, sorry about that.
Right.
A little sleepy.
Good morning, good evening. My name is Josemary Adamus. I'm American. Grew up in New Jersey. I'm living currently in Dongguan, China. Also in the southern part of China, Guangdong province. So I'm actually a sister at the sister school of Keisha. And I've been living here for about 2 years now. So.
Cool. And what grade level do you teach?
I'm teaching first grade currently.
Okay. Cool. All right, we're just going to go ahead and dive in. So if you guys, and you can sort of take turns doing this, tell us a little bit about your professional background. So whether or not you were an educator before you got to your school and just how your path was into where you got to.
I was a history teacher for about 8 years. I worked with middle school and high school. Before I came here, my last job was a high school history teacher where I taught grades 9 through 12. During that time, I went back to school to get a master's in guidance and counseling. And so that's how I got here.
Okay.
I've always been a high school counselor in the state of Virginia, where I'm from. Educators don't have to be teachers first, as they do in a lot of states. You can just be a counselor. So I received I earned my master's in counseling from Virginia Commonwealth University, VCU. I received my undergraduate degree in sports medicine at the University of Virginia. And professionally, I've worked in, this is my second time working in Thailand. I worked here before from 2002 to 2006. And I worked in Taipei, Taiwan at another international school. And for those of you out there who are geographically challenged, Taiwan and Thailand are two different countries. And then after, believe me, so many people, when my family and I moved from Thailand to Taiwan, many people got confused because they already thought we were in Taiwan. I'm like, no, two different countries. And then lived in the Middle East in Muscat, Oman for 5 years. So, and the reason I became a high school counselor is because I had a wonderful high school counselor in my high school, and she inspired me. And my first job as a counselor was back in my old high school in Richmond, Virginia, and I got to work with my counselor. She served as my mentor. It was a great way to begin my counseling career.
Great. And I know we lost Josemary, so I'm assuming she's going to call back in. So But one thing I would like either one of you to do is, for the people who are listening in, you guys are all at international schools. Can you explain that for folks who don't actually know or have context of what that is?
Okay, so for my school, basically, when you think about international schools, you need to look at it as a school in any other place, like what you would be familiar with in the United States. So you have your high schools, your middle schools. Sometimes it may go from through 12. And so you have a lot of expats who may move to a certain area and they may have pulled their resources together to start a school for their children if they didn't want their kids to go to a local school. Or it could be a school that's created by the Department of Defense, because the military, different bases and so forth. So those are two types of international schools. Now, Ryan, you can chime in if I'm missing something, since you've been at it a little longer than I have.
You calling me old? No,
yeah. Sorry.
the seasoned veteran, right?
That's always my go-to, as Ryan knows. You're seasoned. That's what it is. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So the three schools where I've worked have all been schools that have been sponsored by the U.S. Department of State Department, and so, but they're open to, I guess, first priority is American citizens, but also to the local population as well. What I try to explain to people, let's say you work for a corporation like Coca-Cola or Colgate or the U.S. Embassy. And so when you're sent abroad on your assignment, many of these families want an American education. And so everywhere I've worked, the schools where I've worked have offered an American-style diploma in addition to, IB or AP. Mm-hmm. So let's say if a family were thinking about moving overseas with the company with which they work and wanted to continue an American-style education, they would attend a school like mine.
Okay. And are all of you working at American-style international schools, or are you working at a German, British, or have any kind of experience with that?
I've always worked at American-style schools.
Okay. And Keisha and Josemary, are they both American-style schools?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
Okay. That being said, so we've got some people who are interested in international education careers. Could each of you sort of explain a little bit how you got into your first international posting?
We lost her again.
I know.
Okay. Yes, the internet, this is like some of the experiences that you'll have if you come abroad as an international educator. Sometimes always, so we have those first world problems. But like for me, how I got this job is very interesting. I didn't intend on an international career. I wanted to transfer from the private school that I was teaching at into the New York City public school system to work as a school counselor. And what I didn't know prior to graduating was that New York City had a hiring freeze for about 10 years. And wow. I happened to see a posting in the ASCA, the American School Counselor Association website, for my current position. And I was just like, oh man, China, do I really want to do that? And, we got a new principal at my previous school, and I'm like, oh no, I can't stay here. So I applied, and I didn't really think I was going to get it, and I got it. I had to have 2 interviews via Skype. And once they, the 2 interviews were finished, in a matter of like 2 days, I received the offer letter. And so that's pretty much how I got here. And I said, well, I can either say no to the opportunity because I really wanted to stay in the States and begin my counseling career, or I could take some time out of my life to try something new. And I decided to take a chance and try this new experience. And I'm so glad that I did. I don't regret it for a minute.
Okay.
Living and working overseas was always something I wanted to pursue, but I didn't know how to go about it. And then when I met my wife, well, my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, she knew about the whole international school scene. She knew about job fairs. She was subscribing to a magazine called Transitions Abroad, and this is just something we had in common. I mean, we pretty much talked about it on our first date. It was pretty cool. And so we were living in the DC area at the time, and so our plan was, you know, get married, buy a house, go overseas after a couple of years. And so the year we decided to pursue this, the job fair was in Washington, D.C., and it had never been in the D.C. area. So we went, and it was just like I don't know how to explain it. A job fair is just like a cattle call, really. I mean, you have schools, you have all these tables from all over the world, and then you just pretty much, at least back then, early 2000s, they would have like a chart or a board behind their desk, just listing all the jobs that are available. Prior to, you may correspond with a couple school heads, but then when you get there, you just, well, back then the fairs would have like and 2 days, like it'd have one part geared towards admin and counselors, and other part geared strictly towards teachers. And so we went to the admin fair, and you just go around. I mean, you see which schools had postings listed, and you just go from school to school. And so we interviewed. So you interview initially, and then if things clicked, they would ask you for a follow-up interview. So I remember we interviewed the schools. You really can end up all over the world, and when you go to a job fair, you should not go with any preconceived notions like, I want to go to Europe, I want to go to Africa. You just go where the jobs are. I mean, it's like a metaphor for life. It truly is. I mean, yeah. One of my favorite quotes is, "People plan, God laughs." So right. you just, you know. And so we interviewed with a variety of different school heads, but really it came down to a school in Bangkok and a school in Kuwait. And the school in Kuwait needed a choir person in addition to a counselor. And they had a married couple that fit that. And so, you know, and lots of times with international schools, it's all about timing and their needs, what they need. I mean, lots of times it's not a reflection on you personally. It's just finding the right fit and timing. That's what it all comes down to. So then once, especially as a counselor, once you're in an international community or network, I mean, there's a small community of international school counselors. And so we went to that job fair. And unfortunately, ever since then, we haven't had to return to a job fair, because you just start hearing about jobs from fellow counselors. They'll shoot you an email, or you go to a conference, you meet with the school head. And nowadays, I think the job fairs are kind of becoming obsolete. Everything's going more towards Skype interviews, people flying in to the schools directly. And I mean, that's what we've done with our last two jobs. So.
Thank you. And I was going to say, Josemary, can you talk a little bit about how you got your job in China?
Yes, I want to apologize for the service here. It's just horrible. I keep going in and out.
That's okay.
I'm trying to catch snippets because I can't hear everyone. But actually, I'm a recent graduate from Rutgers University. So I graduated in 2014 and had a desire to just look for jobs abroad. I didn't want to teach in New Jersey. I started applying for jobs in New Jersey, but there was something off about it. So I started looking. I attended a district job fair and saw a table for international school services. So I went and did my research and found out, just started applying for jobs, set up a profile for myself and started applying for jobs there, and got callbacks from China, Qatar, and Italy, and just ended up coming to China because they offered more benefits, and I saw that it was a better opportunity for me as well. So this is actually my first international job abroad, first job ever actually. So oh my God. Pretty excited. Yes, pretty excited to be here.
And I'm pretty impressed. I didn't realize you were a 2014 college grad. Oh no, that's a lot more recent than some of our more seasoned people up on that.
Yes, I'm definitely.
I mean, whatever. I'm seasoned too, but I'm just saying, like, she's like fresh meat. I didn't realize all that. All right, cool.
Yes.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Amanda.
I always make fun of the people who are older than me, and I'm like, hey, I'm looking at you, top row. So tell me, like, what are the differences? And I guess this will probably fall more for Ryan and Keisha because this is your first job, but I'm curious as to what are the differences that you guys have experienced having worked in your home states in the US versus working in an international school and with those populations?
That's a good question. For me, now, I said before that I was a teacher, but during the last 2 years, I also did the school counseling at my job because our school counselor had to take a leave of absence. And working in New York and, in any other state, there's always resources. So if you're dealing with a student who might be suicidal or who may have domestic issues at home or whatever, there's resources that are already made. You know what to do. Sometimes coming to a new school in a different country where you're not familiar with the resources and the laws, it can be very, very frustrating and, overwhelming, especially as a new counselor. This was like my first full-time counseling gig. And I'm like in China. So we know that there are some who may exhibit characteristics for learning disabilities or something like that. And this is an area where they're not going to have their child evaluated, or they may not be as readily able to do it as they would in the States. And so it's just, just learning your way, maneuvering around the system. Now, how do I feel about being here and in these 2 years? What have I learned? There are still resources that are very scanty, but I know how to find certain things. And the best advice that I can give, always connect with other counselors who have been here longer than you have, because you're not going to know everything.
Okay. Ryan?
One of the first things I learned moving to Thailand years ago, working in international schools, kids are kids. A lot of the same issues, a lot of the issues I dealt with students in the States, I was pleasantly surprised, but found the same issues internationally as well. But I want to talk about resources in two different ways. One, the schools in which I've worked have been well resourced in terms of facilities, money. Some of the trips the students go on are just unbelievable. But in terms of, like Keisha mentioned, in terms of, let's say if you need a student to be tested for a learning difference, when I first moved to Oman, there were no services like that. Our families had to fly to Dubai for educational testing. Fortunately, in the 5 years in which I was in Oman, things got better. We had a lot more specialists, a lot more resources in the 5 years. But that was eye-opening initially. The lack of resources. Also, the lack of what's the child protective services?
Yes.
When you have an abuse issue, I remember working in Virginia, suspected abuse or actual abuse, you just call CPS, they come in and they take over. That's been very frustrating working internationally, just when a student is being abused or suspected abuse and you just can't call CPS. It's just that lack of service in itself that's been a frustrating aspect of working internationally. But so I'd say that's a huge difference.
So there was a question: does school administration not offer some kind of onboarding process? Can you either of you speak, or Josemary, if you can hear us, can any of y'all speak to that question?
I'm sorry. When you say onboarding, you mean provide room and board, like housing on campus?
And I'm wondering if that's a training question. That's what I'm thinking in terms of. I'm thinking that's an orientation question, but we might need a little bit more clarification. So
resources.
About resources.
Okay. Or lack of. Okay. So in my situation, my school is new. Our school is only 4 years old, and we're graduating our first class this year. Now, as far as the resources, when I came in, I was under the impression that I was going to get that talk and, say, okay, well, this is how we do this here. This is how the law works. In this aspect, culturally, we can do this, but we can't do this. I didn't get any of that. And I'm wondering, because I try not to be too harsh about it because it's a new school and it's okay. So our school is an American high school for Chinese nationals. And so I came to the conclusion, like, well, maybe they don't know themselves yet because they haven't gone through certain situations. And as these concerns and these issues arise, then they're able to, you know, to figure out how they want to handle it. So for my school, that didn't happen. Yeah, and I had to end up contacting people via Twitter who were in international schools in China, which was really, really helpful because it gave me a lot of insight.
Yeah, I saw the same.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ryan.
Go ahead, Joseph.
I saw the same.
No, please.
I also have to agree with Keisha because my school is also fairly new. It's only in our 4th year. So, and coming as a first-year teacher, it was like I was drowning. I had to reach out to people abroad to see what kind of resources they had. But again, it's a school that's trying to figure itself out and put itself together. So a lot of the legwork we had to do as teachers, and also kind of finding our path. As where the school would like to go and where they would like, where they kind of were trying to figure out where we were headed as well. So it was really confusing time for us and figuring out where to get resources from. Being in a new country, like Keisha mentioned before, not all those resources are available to you. So it would depend on the school that you're coming from as far as what kind of resources would be available to you at the time.
Okay.
And unfortunately, many school administrators have no idea what we do. So, so in terms of resources, you really have to rely, if you work in a counseling department, on your colleagues who've been there prior to your arrival, or as Keisha said, just reach out. I mean, we're fortunate here in Bangkok, so many international schools. We have a large counseling network, so we're constantly reaching out to one another. But also, don't be afraid to just email other counselors worldwide. I mean, we've all been there on one stage, shape, or form, and so we're always happy to help one another.
Okay. Thank you guys for answering that question. I kind of want to shift a little bit to understanding what is sort of the culture of the school that you're at. And in terms of, I know Keisha already mentioned this, your student population is mostly Chinese nationals or all Chinese nationals?
Nationals, yeah.
Okay, so if you could speak a little bit to that dynamic coming from the States as a counselor, what has that been like for you?
Okay,
and Rosemary, you can add in, I think, too, as she kind of concludes that you're both in China.
Okay, so our school is the first of its kind where it's a totally 100% American high school based only for Chinese nationals. Now, I had never worked with the Chinese population before. So this was new for me. I'm coming from New York City, very urban. So my previous school, the students were about 95% Black, being Caribbean, Caribbean American, and African American and Africans. And the other 5% were Dominicans. So you see where my background is. Right. So the first thing that I learned about coming to China, and Ryan had said it earlier, was that no matter where you go, kids are kids. Mm-hmm. You know, and I was nervous because I wondered how they would react to me as a Black woman. Would they, you know, accept me, or especially the parents? And I realized coming here, it was just like, you know what? Parents are parents no matter where they are, because they're, you know, their main concern is about their children, and the kids are all the same. Like I'm walking on the campus, right? And this kid is playing this song, and I'm like, what are you listening to? It's like Empire. You know, Empire, you know, Boo Kitty. I was like, wait, what? What do you know? Why do you know about this? And then so I began to see that there was a real big interest in like hip hop culture and all of these things. And I'm like, listen, kids are kids anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I appreciated that. And that made my transition much easier. Mm-hmm. So as far as dealing with the kids and the population, that was helpful. The cultural pieces now, as far as learning what race was, you know, the idea that not embarrass someone or ridicule them in a way that will make them force them to be ostracized. That takes a little bit of. I still have not totally accepted that yet. And an example that I will give, like there would be like a kid who is academically, they're not doing well. Mm-hmm. And if the parent would get the child tested, it will help us to know what services to offer. And the parents will refuse to do it. And so I'm like, you're willing to make your child academically, fail instead of getting him the help that they need. And the parents are like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Because we don't want to be embarrassed, or we don't want the label to be thrown upon our child. And it's just like, wow, I can't believe it, So that's some of the things that I've experienced.
Okay, thank you. Just Ryan.
I was just going to say, in Asia, culturally, it's all about saving face, not bringing shame to the family. And lots of times, if your child has a difference of any sort, I mean, that's bringing shame, or it's something that can be written about in the college letter of recommendation. Mm-hmm. And so parents and even students, I mean, I remember when I first worked in Taiwan, a lot of students were afraid to truly open up and share what's going on because they were afraid it's going to end up in the letter of recommendation. So I quickly reassured my students, what's said here stays here, unless you're going to harm yourself or somebody else. But and also, if what you share with me, it can assist you in the college application process, I'm going to add it to your letter because it's just going to improve your profile, enhance your profile. But yeah, there's a lot of anybody come into Asia, you have to realize about people are all about saving face. So.
Okay.
I was going to say, so the question was about changes in, was it demographics or student populations coming overseas?
Oh, was there a question that came through? I haven't gotten it.
Okay. No, I thought that was your initial.
I was like, if there was a question that was coming through, I haven't seen it. Well, here's what I was actually going to ask you even a little bit more. So Keisha's already alluded to this. What has sort of been the general reaction as, with your Black identity, and Ryan, you have a partner and you have children, right? So what has it been like, particularly with your Black identity, working in an international school, and then in the home culture or the host culture that you're living in?
I'll never forget when I first came overseas, worked at an international school that was diverse in an Asian sense, had a lot of different Asian ethnicities, but not really in a Western sense. I'll never forget when I was introduced, there was a Sri Lankan student, and she's a little bit darker than me, and I just remember her having a big smile on her face when I was introduced because of somebody that she could connect with. Professionally, people have treated me as a professional. People treated me, as a knowledgeable person, a resource. Personally, socially, it's been interesting. A lot of people, especially I think as an African American male, assume that I'm overseas. I must be either military or an athlete. I've been called Michael Jordan so many times. I've been called a lot of things in terms of Black athletes. Or they assume I'm an English teacher, so I have to do a lot of educating. Oh my goodness. In that regard, I mean, no matter where I am.
And can you tell a little bit, because you've made that reference about the English teacher thing, just what the difference is between what you guys do and an English teacher?
Right. So in many of these schools, internationally, there are lots of English language training schools. And so what happens, a lot of native English speakers will come overseas, usually, people in their 20s, backpackers looking to make some money. And so they'll teach at these schools and then they'll move on. And so many instances, they don't have the academic credentials as, many of us would have in terms of master's degrees and things like that. And so many people assume, even back in my home country, that, you're overseas, you're living in a hut, you're teaching people English in a village somewhere. Right. And no, that as opposed to the schools where Rosemary, Keisha, and I work, where it's, it's like a school you would find back home. Right. Just like, a big high school that's resourced with students from all over. It's a huge difference, and I know we talked about this last week as well. One question I've always asked in meeting with administrators is, how am I going to be received as an African American male, and also being with a mixed race family? And fortunately, all the admin have been very upfront and honest. And lots of times internationally, it's more people are curious. Sometimes I feel in the U.S. there's a hostile curiosity, whereas internationally, as long as people are staring at you and you look back, and as long as you smile, they will smile with you. They're not looking to shiv you or anything for the most part. But yeah, so that's been our experience as well. And I have 2 children, and yeah, they've had a wonderful experience also. So yeah, but with anything, I always feel like I have to prove myself when I first get to a place. I think that's that goes without anywhere I've gone. But overall, it's been a wonderful experience.
And I think we should let Josemary speak, because she may drop off again.
I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. It doesn't show that I'm dropped off, but I think I'm a part of that conversation. I'm like, wait, Amanda skipped me, but then I realized I'm not even on.
Okay, so here's the question. Here's the question. Okay. I asked them, what has been the relationship with your Black identity and the host country that you're living in and the school you're working at? Hopefully she got all that.
Well, as far as being Latina, because I come in with an Afro-Latina identity. So at first it was a little difficult, but seeing that even in my school they did hire, we also have other Black teachers on campus, that made it a little bit easier of a transition, knowing that, okay, I'm not the only one being looked at this way. But my students accept me the way I am. I've had questions like, oh, why are you so Black? Or why is your hair this way? So those little curious questions. And again, it's just they're curious. Like Ryan said, they're just very curious people, and they've never seen people like us before out here. So to them, we're kind of like some hot commodities. So that took a little getting used to for me to accept the fact that people were snapping pictures of me in public, or that there were people that actually have tried to touch me and see if my skin will rub off, like things like that. So once you get past that, it becomes a lot easier. But to me, that was one of the hardest things I had to overcome, was understanding that I look different from my coworkers, from my students, and I don't. After that, again, it's also the children. My children, they're just very open. They're and like any child across the world, it's very innocent. So they ask these questions, and then I think about it as, okay, there's a reason that I'm here to teach them that, okay, Black is beautiful. This is normal. We are human beings, and we need to be respected in that way. So I enjoy being the hot commodity in town, I guess I can say. I don't know.
Do you explain to people what Afro-Latina is? Like, do they know? Delay.
Yeah. Well, actually, I come from the Dominican Republic, so and I talk to them.
Oh no, that's. She'll be back, and we're gonna get an answer to that question, because I am curious. So, okay.
I just wanted to say something. In many respects, we are ambassadors for our culture, our race, and like Josemary said, in many instances, we are the first Black, Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Latina that people have seen. And so, you only get one chance to make a first impression, right? So in many respects, we are ambassadors.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Keisha, do you want to add?
Yeah, in my experience, I'm going to talk about 2 different things. The first thing I'm going to talk about is at my job. At my job currently, I'm the only Black person there. I'm the only one. The school is predominantly, as far as the kids, like I said, the kids are all Chinese. The teachers are all white. And we have one Indian teacher, one Filipino teacher, one teacher who is half white, half Ethiopian, and then there's myself. That's it. And so what I'm realizing in interacting with a lot of my coworkers, they're from areas where they have not interacted with minorities before. And so I end up getting a lot of inappropriate remarks or comments. So like, for example, this happened this week. Our students were taking junior class photos, and they had them on the quad, and they were spelling out 17, right? And because they're graduating 2017. And one of my coworkers, the white male, he comes up to me and says, he starts going, so he says, you know what would be so cool if the kids were doing signs like this in the pictures. So I'm there now, and I'm like, and that would be cool because, so he says, no, and then he starts singing an NWA song. And I'm like, first of all, I don't know what you're singing.
So bad.
To get it correct, I'm from New York. I'm East Coast, so I don't listen to West Coast hip hop. And so you're trying to tell me that you're glorifying gang violence, and so I get a lot of inappropriate comments like that. So I made complaints to the administration. I'm like, listen, I don't like being the only Black person here. I'm like, I'm going to tell you how I feel. You can send me home if you want to, but I'm going to tell you. So I chose not to renew my contract. And in talking closely to the director, now they've hired 5 Black people for next school year. So I do feel happy that has happened because, again, if it's an international school with the teachers, it should reflect that.
Right.
With the parents now and the kids, they've accepted me. They accept me as a professional and that I'm good at my job and that I'm going to go out my way to do what I need to do for them. I've only ever had one case where a parent requested because we do have a Chinese American school counselor, they requested to have her. And that's perfectly okay. I did not take offense to it. So like, you know what? That's perfectly fine. And they were really nice about it. And I think more so it wasn't because I was Black, but more so because of the culture, So I'm totally okay with that. Outside now, when they see me, I'm a heavyset Black woman with dreads. So anywhere I go, I'm going to stop traffic, just like Josie said. Okay, Josie really does like being a commodity. I don't. I just like blending in, and unfortunately, that is not going to happen. I've had people come up to me and, oh, so Black. I've had that.
No.
I
know, and I know it wasn't funny when it happened, but it is kind of funny to hear about it.
I'm telling you, these are things that really happen. Like sometimes I'll go to the market and it's like when I wash my dreads, I'll braid them up. Like I just took out the braids. Can you see? I just took them out for the camera. So I go to the market and I'm trying to pick out tomatoes or something. And next thing I know, I have hands in my hair, like trying to, and I get it. They're trying to understand, but it's like Ryan said, if this was in New York, I would have got you. But I'm in a rural area. They've never seen a Black person before. And if they had, they've probably never seen one with hair like mine. So I have to use each interaction as a learning experience for them. And the most powerful thing of all, if you smile, a smile goes a long way. Because sometimes you can see someone who's looking at you in disbelief, like they have the worst face ever. Like we said, the stinking face, like. But then the New York in me wants to get offended and be like, what are you looking at? But I say, calm down, Keisha, just smile.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, ni hao, how? And then when you start, they're like, oh, and then they start coming and they start talking like, oh, I only know those 2 words. That's it. But the interaction is great. So that's been my experience.
I'm sorry. It is always an amazing thing when someone touches black skin to see if it comes off. Like, we took Crayola crayons and just colored ourselves. Like, this is what we look like. But Josery, since you're on, I asked you this question earlier. We got to get this answer. So do you explain to people what Afro Latina is?
Yes. So I basically, the first reaction they see when they see me is, "Oh, you're African," and I'm like, "No, I'm Dominica, meaning Dominican," and they're like, "Busha," they don't know. So I just explain, well, my ancestors are African, but I'm actually from the Dominican Republic, and I explain, so even with the explanation, it still doesn't click for them because it's all about what they see. You are African. This is where you're from. So that also helped shape who I am as a person, because when I first came, I didn't identify as Afro-Latina. I just said, "Oh, I'm Dominican," and I didn't really know what that meant. So coming here and seeing that every single person was saying facial African or Black person, I was just like, well, no, I'm not. And it kind of let me do my own research and see, okay, where is it that my family comes from? And also with the help of Keisha, finding out my ancestry. So there's a lot of things that come with these experiences that help shape who you are and at least help shape who I was and help get a better understanding of where I come from. So even though they were those reactions I was getting actually made me do my own research. So I'm really grateful for it.
So that's really amazing. And I was going to say, for the other two panelists, did you see any shifts in how you saw your own identity in the different places you've lived, Brian or Keisha, in China?
I just want to back up to Keisha's experience in China, because China it's a wild place, especially in regards to race. When my eldest, who's now 12, when he was about 5 months, we were living here in Bangkok before, family traveled to Shanghai. And so we're pushing my son Miles in a stroller. And as I mentioned, we're a mixed race family. And so, when you're walking, you feel somebody behind you. So we were pushing the stroller. People were running up from behind us. They would get in front of the stroller, look at me, look at my wife, look at Miles. Some people would go, "Good job," and then others just kind of looked and gave the stink eye that Keisha was giving, like, what's going on there? And then later on in the day, we were taking a break. We were on a park bench, and Miles was sleeping, and we just happened to look over. There were 10 people around the stroller just snapping photos of Miles, and I think he's ended up in a billboard somewhere, in Shanghai, But what's interesting in Thailand, there's so many mixed race families. And so there's a word in Thai called lakrong, which means half. And so, and people who are lakrong are looked upon more favorably in Thai society, because they tend to be, people think they're prettier, more attractive, what have you, and they tend to be the ones in advertisements and things like that. So having mixed race kids here, it's people are like, oh, lakrong, and so that's been interesting. But yeah, China's a wild place.
As far as I was going to say, any other further thoughts as far as when you think about identity and all the places you've lived in, or?
Well, what's been interesting to me, I met Amanda at Families and Global Transition Conference a couple of years ago, and we talk about third culture kid issues, cross-cultural kid, and I didn't realize until going to that conference that I was a CCK, a cross-cultural kid. With my mom being from Trinidad, my dad being from the States, it never occurred to me. I mean, it took my wife and my mom, who happened to be attending the conference, to be like, "Ryan, you're a CCK." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I think that has helped me, because having a parent who immigrated to the U.S., my worldview has always been wide open. I mean, I was traveling to Trinidad as a child, as an infant. And so I think that really just gave me a wider worldview and really helped me in wanting to live internationally. So that's something that I have discovered since living overseas.
Okay.
You're right.
And Keisha, what about your identity?
I think before coming here, I've always been I've always been in tune with who I am, both as a person, as a woman, and culturally. So I don't think like my experience abroad has affected that or changed it any. I do find that I have to educate a lot because just like what Rosemary said, here in China, they tend to group all Black people as, no, you were born physically in Africa. And when we tell them, no, I'm actually born in the United States, for them, it's very hard to grasp. And what I realized, even talking to adults who are like 30, 40 plus, trying to tell them where my parents came from. Like my grandfather left Cuba and went to Jamaica, and this is how our family began. They have no idea what the Caribbean is. They don't know. And a lot of them, and it's like, I would expect this answer from a child, but this came from an adult. When I said the Caribbean, they're just like, is it just like Pirates of the Caribbean, the movie? Have you seen that? And so I have to say, oh my God. And I'm just like, I always have to run through the list. Like, okay, do you know who Bob Marley is? Then like, some may know, some don't know. I'm like, okay, what could I use? Okay, Usain Bolt. Do you know who? Usain Bolt? You know who that is? And I'm like, oh yeah. And so I'm always teaching, but culturally, for myself, identity-wise, I've always been very strongly in tune with who I am. So being abroad has not affected that any. It's just, it made me realize that there are other people who, in this day and age of 2016, that still they don't know. And so, it's to educate.
Okay. Actually, I have thought a few other things. It's interesting because, growing up in the U.S., I just always viewed myself African American male. You saw me walking down the street, African American male. But what's been interesting, living internationally, I have this everyman look. I mean, I'll never forget being in Australia one time at a market, and a Black man walked up to me. He's like, "Oh, are you from the Solomon Islands? Are you Aborigine? Are you from the Torres Strait Islands?" Places I had never heard of. I was like, "Oh." And then a couple Christmases ago, in New Zealand, I'm in the airport, and a gentleman walks up to me speaking a language I'd never heard of. And I kind of look at him. He's like, "You're not Fijian?" Because I'm like, "No." He's like, and then he said something else. He's like, "You're not from Vanuatu?" I'm like, "No, I'm from the DC area." And then he just starts laughing. And then I think the last question he asked me if I was Samoan. I'm like, "No." And then in Oman, it was really neat because, as I mentioned before, my children and I look Omani. I mean, especially when we're dressed in Oman, in the dish dash and kum. And so ethnically, many Omanis came from Tanzania, came from Zanzibar. And so many people thought we were from Tanzania or Zanzibar. A lot of people were like, "Ryan, you look like one of my cousins, man. Are you sure you're not from Zanzibar?" I'm like, "No, I'm not from Zanzibar." So it's been interesting internationally. People just think I'm from all over.
And not from where you're from, though, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's been really eye-opening. Yeah.
And that's been my experiences traveling. It's funny where everyone thinks I'm from everywhere that I'm not. And so in South America, we had a lot of people who would say to me, "Oh," I remember other South Americans when I was in Argentina go, "Wait, are you Colombian?" And I'm like, "Can you tell by my lack of Spanish that I'm not Colombian?" And then in Uruguay, they would think I'm Brazilian, which is an understandable right. Like, I think being mistaken for Brazilian in South America makes a whole lot of sense. But it was never, I would always say, "Well, I'm coming from the States," and people would just look at me like, this is not even, like, I don't know. With all the media, people are still amazed that they're Black people in America. So it's very weird to me. But as we're sort of winding down, one of the questions I wanted to make sure I asked you guys are, what is the advice that you would give for people who are considering an international education position abroad? What are the things that you wish you had known? What are the advice or tips you would give about that? Just, what do you guys think? Like, what do people need to know?
I'd say if you're really going to consider doing this as a career or, coming for a little while or however you decide you want to do it, research everything that you can. Make sure you ask your principal, director, ask them honest questions, because most times you're not going to be able to go. You're not going to get a preview. Like, you can't come over and be like, let me just travel all of these thousands of miles to see what the job is like. You know what? It's not going to work for me, and leave. You don't really find out what you're getting into until you get here. One of the most important things for me that I did was I got a support group. And I thank God for social media, because I was able to find a group called Black Life China. Black Life China is the key to everything as far as Western Black culture is concerned. So African American, West Indian, whatever you have. And I contacted all of these people. I had access to them before I came. So I knew where to get my shampoo. If I ran out, I knew where to get lotion, cocoa butter. Yep. I knew where to get, like, when I want to cook my Jamaican food, I knew where to get certain things from. I knew where to find the Africans. I knew when I went to the markets to be like, excuse me, sister, I want to get these things back. How much is this? Okay? So I can get the discount. So I got all those things, and it was such a resource for me. When I got here, my coworkers were so surprised to see me. Like, we'd be walking in the streets, and people, hey, Keish, what's up? How do you know this person? Oh, I knew them like 6 months after I got the job. But you just got to China this week. Support system.
Okay.
You're going to get like the what do you call it? The culture shock, the depression. You're going to need those people to hold you up. And when your family is far from home, when you're far away from them, you need somebody. So the support system, to me, that's the biggest thing.
Right. I would say be open to all possibilities. Don't close yourself off. You may end up somewhere you never even heard of, like Oman. Just be truly be open to all possibilities. And when you get there, have an open mind. No, it's not going to be like home. I mean, if you wanted it to be like home, you just stay at home. All right.
Yeah.
So but like Keisha said, find your support system. Find out the good places to go eat. Find out where the Black folk hang out, what they like to do. Find your support system, because as you can tell, I love quotes. Friends are the family that you choose. Okay.
Yes.
And especially with this lifestyle, your friends are going to be your family. Okay. So choose them wisely and use them as your support system. But but be open to all. I mean, this is a wonderful lifestyle. You just got to be open to, it's going to be ups and downs no matter where you are, so.
And I think that the fact that you both said support systems are really important. Obviously, Ryan, you've got a family unit with you, and then both Keisha and Jose are single. So the last, you came in time for the last question, but I was asking them. I know you've been trying. I've seen it on my phone. But Jose, do you have any advice for anyone who's considering being an international educator abroad, either for personal or professional advice?
Well, personal advice, definitely do your research. I got hired in June, right after graduation, and literally had like a month to prepare, and I didn't do the necessary research, because when I came to China, it was a slap in the face for me. I was just like, wow, culture shock to the extreme. And definitely urge everyone to just do their research before they come abroad. And even though you can't mentally prepare yourself, at least you're well informed of what is going to happen. Also, be very flexible. Things will go wrong. They always do. And you just have to be able to have, on top of being flexible, having a positive outlook. Because if you come here with this negativity and, oh, this is not like it is in the States, and I've seen it with other coworkers, and it just, their experience is a horrible one, because they have this negative outlook, and it takes a toll on their professionalism as well. So you just have to be positive working here. It's a whole new lifestyle that you're living. You're leaving everything behind and coming abroad. It's a big move, but if you're not willing to learn, then teaching abroad is not for you. So just going back to the point, just being able to just being able to do everything, being open to new experience, new people, new living circumstances, being just open and take it all in and breathe it all out. You just have to take everything in and just roll with the punches.
Yeah.
And so even though she's been in and out the whole time, she's like nicely wrapped up the entire session. Oh, Joe.
Good job, Josephine. Good job.
When it counted, right?
Good job. Good job.
So I want to respect the time, and I want to thank you guys.
Thank you.
I want to thank you guys for chiming in. I know that it is early in the morning for some of you, and it's late in the evening. We are recording this session. I'm pretty sure we'll make it available on YouTube for those who want to see it one way or the other. But if you have any further questions, you can certainly follow any of us at our Twitter handles. Certainly follow the Black Expat. We've got some really cool stuff coming up in the month of April and some new articles launching this week. And thanks again, guys.
Thank you, Amanda. Thanks for setting this up.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you so much.
All right. I guess Keisha gets to stop the chat. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to 7. All right.
Okay.